Network Dojo.
So again, I mentioned there's two different ways to configure the SSID, and let's talk about those. So the first one that we do, we would configure an external pass-through web portal on the WLAN. So we'd set layer 2 to be open or none. We'd set layer 3 to be pass-through, and we would use an external URL for this, and the URL would point to the CMX server. We would give it the URL, and we'll show you where to look that up. But this is the general format of it: HTTPS IP or DNS name /visitor/login. Anytime we do this external URL stuff, we have to have a pre-auth ACL to allow us to talk to it, so we'll need the pre-auth ACL. And this definitely supports all the portals in the post-portal authentication URL, but it does not support rate limiting. Rate limiting is actually a radius process, and so we'll look at that in the next option. So let's get this one working, and then we'll show you, one, that it doesn't do rate limiting, and then two, we'll show you the WLAN option 2 and what it takes to get the rate limiting part of it working there. All right, so right now I have just a plain open SSID called guestpod1. So there's nothing special about it, there's nothing here. So let's get this working. What do I need in order to make this work? Well, I need to set this to web policy. I need this to be pass-through. We need it to be external. Then we need the URL, and you should be able to look this up on the CMX server. If we, what do we do? I think we, there we go. So if you click on the custom portal help, it actually gives you the URL, so you don't have to memorize it. So I will copy that, and we'll paste it here. Now I still need that pre-auth ACL, and I don't think I have one yet, so I'm just going to have to, at the moment, save this. And then create that pre-auth ACL. And I should disconnect from this SSID. Okay, that's under security. It'll be a pretty standard pre-auth ACL. Pre-auth. So I am going to allow DNS to any DNS server. And the response from the DNS server. So allowing DNS in both directions, the request from the client to the DNS server, the response from the DNS server, and then communications to the portal, which is the CMX server. So on this one, 3, this time we're talking about talking to 10.0.1.10. And again, if we look at that portal, it's just the standard HTTPS. There's no different port, and so it's just TCP port 443. So we would want to probably match on that. So with the destination port of HTTPS, that would be the inbound, and then the response. This time it would be coming from the CMX server. 10. TCP from HTTPS in an outbound. Okay, so DHCP always works. Here's allowing DNS and then allowing HTTPS communications to the CMX server. Okay, let's call this out as our pre-auth ACL. So again, it's pass-through, it's external, pre-auth ACL. So the standard type of config that we would use for an external pass-through style WLAN, this is all the same on the controller. All right, so what will happen is when the client connects up to this, we know it's a layer 3. It's passed through, so it's not expecting any username password-based authentication. So it's going to redirect the user to this URL. The CMX server is going to do a location check on the client before it actually displays the page. So it's going to dynamically choose Okay, well, which portal do I display based off of where I know that this client lives? And so the CMX server will display the appropriate portal on this URL. When the client, puts the information in, hit submit, assuming they put in all the required information, we will then send sort of a success back as well as a redirection URL of the one configured in the CMX policy. Client will get redirected, and then it's in a run state, and it's good to go. So let's go ahead and see if this works as expected. So connecting to guest 1 pod 1, if we look at our client stats, show client summary, get the details, we'll see we should be in a WebAuth pending state. Yep, so WebAuth required, which is what we would expect here. So I'm going to try to go to a web page. I'm going to get redirected to the portal. Okay, so this is the custom portal I created, which if we look at the CMX server, I think I can still see it because my client's dual nicked. It has a nick on the same subnet here, so they can talk to this via the wired network. Where's my client? On here, and if we look at the zones, it apparently is in the east zone, which the east zone uses the custom, which is what I'm seeing. So indeed, based off of where I was located, that's how I got sent to the custom portal. Now, unfortunately, I can't make my client move, so the only way to show you using the other portal is to just change this and flip it. So we'll do that in the next one. I'll change this. And so regardless of where I connect, we'll look at the CCIE portal just so you can see the different portals in play. But definitely, this is how we get chosen which portal that we're in. So we can sort of follow the logic and see that it's all working right. Okay, but I am in here. I need my name, my email, and what is my favorite color? Mine's blue. And I don't care, you can track my location, hit submit. And now I'm going to get redirected. So this is due to the behavior of the controller. So this is the virtual IP address that I'm getting sent to. But then I got sent to pi.networkdojo.local. And that's just the way the mechanics of the WLAN work is why I got that extra process. It had nothing to do with the CMX server. It had everything to do with how external WebAuth on a 5508 controller works. But there we go. And now I should be in a full run state if I take a look at my client. There we go. We are in the full run state at this point, and I'm just up and running on the network, and I'm good to go. Now let's make a change, and we will use CCIE in this one, so that we'll be able to look at what the other portal is here. So now regardless of where I get sent, I'm going to use the CCIE portal. But let's look at that other type of WLAN that we have here. So WLAN option number 2 is where we are actually going to enable MAC filtering on the layer 2 side of things. So it's an open SSID with MAC filtering. And then on the layer 3 side, we're going to change it from pass-through, and we're going to choose the on MAC-off failure option. And then we'll call out the external URL and the pre-auth ACL, just like we did in the last scenario. And in this case, actually what's going to happen is CMX is going to be operating as a radius server, and we're going to specify CMX as our radius server. And so the CMX server is going to be able to, based off of where the client's located again, send a response that includes the rate limiting. So this is how we support rate limiting. And I can see right now, because I'm still connected to the WLAN, that even though we have this high policy here, if I look at my client stats, we'll see that there is no rate limiting applied to my client session. Because that needs radius to send that type of an override. And we can't do that on this style of a WLAN. So everything about rate limiting is disabled down here. Okay, so in order for CMX to be a radius server, we actually need to do some config to turn that service on, because it's not on by default. So this will take some extra controller config, and this will also take some extra CMX server config. So I guess I'll start on the controller, then we'll do the CMX, then we'll try to watch this work. Okay, so what do I need here? I need to add CMX as a radius server. So 10.0.1.10. And I'll use the shared secret of ndojo123. Standard port 1812. We don't need COA because the COA is not going to happen, but I always turn it on. So pretty standard radius server config. I'm going to go back to the WLAN, and I'm going to disconnect myself as well. We're going to make some tweaks. Try again here. All right, so we're going to turn on MAC filtering and send out our MAC lookups to CMX server. On the layer 3 side, we're going to go down to on MAC failure. But we're still going to call out the pre-auth ACL. We're still going to say that we're doing an external, and we're going to send them to the same URL. So that part's the same. It's just we move from pass-through to on MAC failure. We call out the CMX server as a radius server, and we turn on MAC filtering. So here's the logic with this. The very first time a guest connects to this WLAN and to CMX as a whole, CMX has never seen this device. And so because we have MAC filtering turned on, we do a MAC lookup via radius against the CMX server's radius server. It will not have an entry for that user, which will mean it sends back a rejection response. Because we have on MAC failure set here, rather than just reject them outright, we then engage layer 3 authentications. We do the external redirect, and so they are going to be redirected to the portal. They complete the portal process, and then they get up and running on the network, just like we just saw in the previous example. But that process populates the MAC address in the radius server of the CMX server. So any subsequent authentications will allow the radius server to respond back with a positive response, which includes the rate limiting information. So on the very first auth, we actually don't get the rate limiting engaged, because at the end of the day, it's actually not a MAC auth that gets us up and running on the network. It's this layer 3 auth, because the MAC part fails and the radius server doesn't respond with the rate limiting information. But all subsequent authentications that happen, they leave and come back, session timeout happens, whatever. That is going to, again, it does the MAC check. It's going to be a successful response from the MAC auth with the rate limiting information, and they'll get up and running on the network with rate limiting applied. And in my experience, they stop being sent to the portal once that starts happening. Once MAC auths start working, it doesn't also seem to send a redirection URL to the portal anymore, because it's not a layer 3 auth at that point. The layer 2 works, so we don't engage layer 3, and they actually don't go to the portal. So it's like they go to the portal once, and then after that, they're good until their endpoint's purged out, at which point then it would fail layer 2 auth, fall back to layer 3, do the portal, entries populated, subsequent layer 2 auths pass without the portal redirection after that, and we had just had this sort of cycle going. Okay, but this is what we need, and this is how the sort of the logic of this authentication works, because I didn't talk about on MAC failure in the AirOS series of videos here. Okay, we should be good here. Let's go ahead and take a look at configuring the server on the CMX server. Okay, so I'm still on the CMX server, so that hasn't died here. Okay, in order to make this work, what we're doing is we're actually setting up a free radius server on here. And I don't have to be in any specific subfolder, but I am supposed to be in a elevated privileges, sort of root level privileges here. So we do this su space -l command to get into it's like super user. No, that's switch user is what it is. But it gets us to the root level privileges is really what it does. And so the password for my root account, my password is ndojo123. There we go. Now I'm actually logged in as the root user as opposed to the CMX user. So I've switched over to root user, and I have the privileges there of the root user, which is full-on access to everything. Now I run free radius-conf. And again, I don't have to be in any specific folder to make this work. Free radius-conf. And we have a guided setup process here. So the first time we ever do this, we always need to choose option 1 to just configure it as a whole. So we're going to choose option 1, configure free radius. All right, enter the CMX admin UI credentials. This is the CMX admin CLI account is what it's asking for, not the admin account for the GUI access. So the CMX admin account is what we type in here. CMX admin, the CLI account that we use to SSH into this box. And then the password for that. I have a hunch that's for the service is probably going to run under this user account would be my guess there. All right, is that the correct? Yes, that is correct. Okay, so we will have to restart this at the end to make this work, so don't forget to do that. But how many controllers do I want? So this is a Radius server. Every Radius server needs network devices added to it because only configured network devices are allowed to use the Radius server, right? Same exact thing that we do with ICE as a network device. So how many controllers will be configuring these WLANs that are going to use CMX? For me, I'll just do 1. It's controller 1 that I've been using, so I'll just add 1. We can always add more later. It is an IP address of 10.4.04.11. This is where the Radius requests are going to come from, which is by default the management interface. And then it's going to ping it. Okay, what's the shared secret? And Dojo123 is what I used on the controller. Okay, do we want to add this? Yes, that looks good. Okay, we've successfully added the controllers. Don't forget to restart free radius to make the changes take effect. So please choose an option or enter for the menu. I can't remember the option, so let's just hit enter. Okay. I should be okay. So I've configured free radius. I've added my controller. But if I ever needed to, I could just choose option 4 to add more controllers in the future. So let's go ahead and choose option 9. We're going to restart the free radius service. That was fast. Okay. At this point, we're actually pretty good. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to turn on debugging, so we'll actually be able to see some logs that happen as the users are connecting up here. So I'm going to turn on debugging. And then we want to tail the log to actually see the logs scroll on the screen for us when we connect up. Okay, so and you don't have to do this part, but this just helps you just sort of watch the process happen. So we'll be able to reference these and see, oh yeah, so indeed, this macOS failed because it hadn't seen it before, but then this macOS succeeded on the second attempt. So let's pretend my client's completely brand new here, and let's delete it. So if I go to dashboard, I'm just going to hit this search. Here's my client from my first attempt to connect to it. So I'm going to grab that MAC address, and we see some interesting information here. It knows that it's a Windows 7 client, so it does some profiling stuff against this, probably based off of our browser string. Here's the information that I provided. Cool. I'm going to go over to Settings, Debugging Tools, put the MAC address in here, and then we'll delete the user. Okay, now if I go back to the dashboard and do the search, it has never heard of me before, so this is like a brand new client connecting to CMX for the first time. All right, let's connect and watch the magic. So we connect up. I pull an IP address. Let's take a look at the logs. Okay. So we're connecting up. We've received a request from controller 1. It's a call check, which is Mac-based authentication. This is the username, so it's a Mac check. This is the Mac address that it's going to be checking against in the database. So I think it's checking for it. Blah, blah, blah. It's doing an API call. Okay, so it's going to respond back with a reject. So it's rejecting the user, failed to authenticate the user. And so it's sent a reject back to, so the response was a rejection, which then triggered the on Mac auth failure. And so if I look at my client information here, I should be in that web auth pending because I've moved over to a layer 3 auth because the Mac failed and I'm web auth required. So now I'm back in that same process that I was in the last example. So I'm going to try to go to a web page. I get redirected. And here's the other portal that I get sent to. And yeah, that's okay. I'll accept. Submit. Thank you for the web auth successful message. I was redirected here, and now I should be in a run state. But that did not trigger any new auth log, or did it? So accepted the user. We'll see if it actually accepted these. So it did try to send the overrides here. So if we scroll back up, that might be my mistake. It might actually have worked. So here was the end of the last one where we got the reject. Here's where we started up a new process. All right, so I wonder if there's like a COA event or something like that. But let's take a look. So I should be in a run state. Let's take a look at my client. We are on the network. We are, sorry if I find my state here, we're in a run state. That's good. Did we honor those? Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to turn on AAA override on that WLAN. My apologies. Without the AAA override, we can't accept those extra bits of information, so apologies there. Let's do this one more time. I'm going to remove this. We're going to remove the client from CMX again, so I'm off of here. Copy. Get rid of you. And I'm hoping this gets rid of it from the Radius server, but I don't know if there's any way to really do anything about that. I'm going to do Control-Z to get out of this. Yeah, because we can't do anything with the users inside of here, so get the debugging and all this good stuff back on. Okay. But let's go ahead and reconnect, and we'll see what happens. I've already reconnected, evidently. Let's disconnect. Sorry. Paste. Delete the user again. Okay, it's not found. That's good. Get rid of the user from here. Okay, one more try here. So reconnect, pull an IP address. We should see those same radius deals. Let's see if we end up with a reject at the end. And we did. So we're rejecting the user. I'm just going to make a big old space here so it's easier to see where things pick back up. All right. Try to go to a web page. Now, I'm not going to type anything in yet. Let's see if we see, okay, so nothing new in the radius world yet. Let's say it's Jeff. Submit. Okay, a bunch of things just happened here. All right, so we did receive a new request, so maybe that's just a part of the on MacAuth failure where it sends a follow-up request. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know 100% the answer to that one. But for whatever reason, we sent another request with this user account. It might have been a COA request, I don't know. But it took it then sent the responses back to do the bandwidth contracts within here, which now that I have AAA override turned on, we should hopefully see that honored by the client. And there we go. So we are getting that. We are in a full run state here. So now I should be able to work my way around the network and not have to worry about anything. The pre-auth ACL is not applying anymore, so I can talk to whatever it is that I want. All right, so what if I leave and come back? Am I going to get sent to the portal again? Because in my configuration, I did set this to 0, which means you should be sent to it every time. Let's find out. So let's disconnect. I'm not going to remove my client because I don't want to remove it. I want to pretend that I just left and came back later that day, sort of a deal. So CMX is going to remember me, but my controller, let's make sure that I purge the session so it's a brand new session from the controller point of view. That's going to force the controller to send a new auth to the CMX radio server, and we'll see what response we get. So let me put some space in between there so we can see where the start of things is. Reconnect. Again, it's going to do a MAC auth, so we should see the MAC auth. Check here. We get it. It's sending the override information again, so that's pretty normal. What's my client state? The fact that I can actually open this up pretty much tells me I'm in a run state. And I'm in a run state. If I try to go to a web page, I'll just go right to that web page. So with this type of a setup, I can't force my client to be sent back to the portal page on every login. Now I believe what I could do is I could come into here and say, you know what, every day I'm going to purge the client entry. That way, at least once a day, they do have to see the portal, assuming this was at least once a day or less. I believe it would still honor the visitor portal frequency there. But yeah, so that's the problem that we run into with this style, is that we can't force them to just see the portal every time. Once it's in the database, it always passes the MAC auth. We never engage the layer 3 engine, and so they're just up and running on the network, which if that's what you want, awesome. If that's not what you want, we're kind of stuck. So it's hard to, I don't know of a way to get it where every time that they connect, they get the portal, as well as to be able to support rate limiting. They seem to be mutually exclusive options based off of how everything is configured to work within here. But if we flipped it back to the option 1 from a WLAN configuration standpoint, and just said, you know what, we're not doing MAC filtering. We're just doing the pass-through. I don't need AAA turned on. So with this, based off of this being set to 0, every time I have a fresh session, I should be redirected to the portal. So let's see that one work. All right, so I believe it took it. Yep. Let's clear out my client entry if it's still there. It is. All right, so fresh connection. Connect up. Try to go to a web page. I'm redirected to the portal. Complete the portal. Awesome. All right, disconnect. I leave. I'm gone from the controller. I come back later that day. Okay, session's completely gone, but CMX remembers me. I connect up. Try to go to a web page. I'm redirected to the portal. Have to complete that. So with the setting of 0 and this type of WLAN, every time I get sent to the portal and I have to enter my information in here. But if I start incrementing this value, so I'll say, you know what, once a day. Every 1 day, I have to complete the portal. What does that look like? All right, so is it going to count the previous settings? I don't know. I might have to reconnect twice to see this work, or it might work on the next one. We'll see. But let's disconnect. Remove. Okay, leave. I left. I come back. Try to go to a web page. So I don't know if you caught that. It redirected me to the portal, but the portal recognized that, oh, they've already been here today, so I don't need to display the portal to them. So just without even sending me the page, the portal page, it just sent a response back to the controller. Okay, yep, they're good. Just redirect them to the prime infrastructure server. And so I didn't have to do the portal, although if you were really paying close attention, you would have seen the URL send me to the portal URL, but then immediately flip me to the final URL, which is the redirection at the end of it. And so that's what it looks like when we've already logged in for that day or within the last time range defined underneath the visitor portal frequency, and then we just skip having to type our information into that portal again until 1 day later. Then I will have to go ahead and re-enter that. So every day or however many days that we set there, that's how that one's going to work. So that is kind of the connect and engage world and what we can do. Now, it's perfectly valid that they would ask us to do this in the lab. We have a lot of guest options, that's for sure. So add it to the list of things that we might potentially do. It's definitely interesting, for sure. So understand all the different aspects of it, and you can see the whole policy flow underneath the Connect experience. So we need the portals, potentially a policy if they ask for it, post-auth URL if they ask for it. Understand, just get comfortable creating and working with those portals and adding and editing the different aspects of the portal there. Understand and be very comfortable on the WLAN side of things. Know the two different flavors of the WLANs that we can use and the pros and cons that we get with each one of them. There's things that we can do with option 1 that we can't do with option 2 and vice versa. And if we do need to support the rate limiting type stuff, understand how to get the free radius server working on the CMX side of things so that we can get all this working together. So definitely way more to this than there was to the detect and locate side of things, but interesting solution. Put some practice in and I think you'll get it.